Today we're reviewing Claustrophobia 1643 from Monolith Games. I'm Mark Maya. Welcome to Board Game Coffee. Claustrophobia 1643 is a two-player dungeon crawl adventure game where one player takes on the role of the heroes fending off hordes of evil demons, while the other player takes on the role of those very demons, doing whatever it is demons do. Herald the coming of the apocalypse, devour the flesh of the living, that sort of thing. But that right there, that idea that I'm controlling a group of heroes out to save the day, while the other player is doing everything in their power to try to stop me, it gives both players a sense of purpose. And that's awesome. But what's interesting about this two-player game is that I don't actually feel like I'm playing against another player. But you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because you see, when I'm creeping through the depths of Claustrophobia's catacombs, fending off demons, I get so wrapped up in the ambiance of this thematic presentation that I forget the other players there. I mean, they're the ones controlling all the little critters, but I'm so there in the moment with my hero that I don't even see another player. It's like the best kind of solo game. That's not a solo game at all. Playing against a human-controlled horde is so much better than playing against your typical automated response system horde, like you would find in games like Zombicide. Don't get me wrong, I love Zombicide. I just thought I'd throw that in there for a frame of reference. But as far as AI-controlled hordes go, you can't beat the human AI, or human eye. HI? Claustrophobia's gameplay is broken up into scenarios, and each scenario is laid out in this book. And there's a lot of them. But even if you play through all of them once, it's a different experience every time you go back. The scenario tells you what heroes you're using, which equipment they're taking with them, the demons your opponent has access to, the winning conditions for each player, and any special rules that might apply to this specific situation. But the layout of the level is random. Well, kinda. Some levels do require you to build a random deck in a particular order, but they are still random to an extent. And the way those tiles turn up do make a lot of difference. I once had a mission as a human player to find this demonic a-hole and beat him senseless. But by chance, the random placement of the level tiles led me down this long corridor littered with these little bastards. Now, they're not the hardest things to kill, but there's just so many of them. So I did what I had to do. I made my way down this seemingly endless corridor, hacking and slashing my way through wave after wave of troglodytes, only to find myself at a dead end. Which just happened to be the last tile I needed to trigger the appearance of the room I've been looking for since the beginning of the scenario. Any guesses where that room appeared? Well, if you guessed at the very start of the level, then you'd be right. Ain't that a bitch? So, what's a hero to do? I turned myself around and made my way back. But this time, it didn't go so well. Before I reached my final destination, my entire team was absolutely decimated at the door to the demon's lair. Well, not absolutely decimated. One poor soul on the brink of death managed to crawl his way into the demon's lair. And once there, needless to say, he didn't last very long. Now, as the defeated human player, you might think my attitude was somewhere in the line of, this is bullshit. And it was. But only in the way that it didn't work out for me as well as I had hoped. But I like that. I like a good challenge because that's where the thrill of the game lives. So, was I bitter? Was I upset? No. I was fired up.
Well, fought a good fight. You okay?
What? Yeah, I'm good. Let's go again.
We can stop.
Stop? Why would you want to stop? We're having a good time, right?
Yeah, but
Then why would you want to stop?
you seem a little tense.
Me? No. I'm fine.
I think we should call it quits.
Just set up the next scenario, you face troglodyte casting piece of shit. And I swear to God, you roll that many sixes again, and I will personally leave you and that horseshoe up your ass buried in my basement. You know what? I need a drink. You need a drink? I'm gonna make a drink. Okay, so I was a little upset. But in my defense, Chris is a bit of a dick. When I first sat down with Claustrophobia, it looked to me like the humans were way stronger than the demons. And at the start, it kinda was that way. In a one-on-one fight against a troglodyte, these little spawns of hell don't stand much of a chance. The problem comes when they organize. You see, as a human player, I can slash through troglodytes like they're tissue paper. They only take one hit to kill. Problem is, there's no end to the amount of baddies that the demon player can cast, although there is a finite number of humans. So with the bad guys lacking strength, they more than make up for in numbers. And if you're playing as the humans, I wouldn't drag the game on too long, because the long game will not end well for you. For the most part, demons take damage in your typical fashion. Take a hit, mark a hit. Easy. Now for humans, it's a little different. You see, humans have these slots on their character boards. During the preparation phase, you'll roll the dice and determine your abilities for this round by placing the dice you rolled in their corresponding spaces and activating the abilities on that line. Thing is, when a human takes damage, it's up to the human player to choose how that damage is dealt, with the use of these skulls to denote which slot is absorbing the damage. So this slot is now disabled, so humans actually get weaker as they take damage because they'll have less options of activation slots to activate. And once all these slots are filled up with these little skulls, they're dead. And that's so cool, because in most games, you're fine until you're dead, and then you're not. Fine, that is. But in Claustrophobia, you feel the toll of every wound you take, and that's just neato. Now, I mentioned earlier that scenarios dictate what equipment that the human player takes with them on their adventure. But what scenarios don't do, well, at least not in any scenario I've played, is dictate which events that the demon player can trigger. You see, when the demon player rolls their dice, they also get a chance to spend it on their character board to trigger different abilities. And one of those abilities is to pick up event cards. Now, these things can get nasty. One that was used on me quite often was demonic possession, which allows the demon player to possess one of my warriors and have them attack their teammates. And the best part of that was, I got to roll for it. And of course, when I roll against my own people, it's critical hits all the way. Can't score hits like that on the bad guys, but on my own people, not a problem. Events can also cause tougher troglodytes to pop up where you least expect them, or to cause your warriors to flee in terror. But no matter what side you're on, Claustrophobia 1643 does a really good job of balancing the forces of good and evil. Sure, at the start of the game the humans are stronger, but like I said, the late game belongs to the demons. It's that spot in the middle, that sweet spot where both forces are on equal footing. Very well done. And another thing that Claustrophobia does well is the art. First off, the box art for this game is simply amazeballs. Just look at this thing. And the minis look great too. Just check these guys out. Cool, right? And that's not all. I'm also a huge fan of the tiles. Well, admittedly, they're a little basic looking, but I'm not talking about them as an individual piece. I'm talking about how they work as a whole. You see, no matter how you lay these things down, they match up. giving the tunnels a nice organic feel, which plays really nice into the idea that these tunnels are no place for man. These tunnels are for beast. But these tiles are more than just a thematic selling point. They also serve different functions that affect your gameplay, both as a human player and a demon player. For example, any damage done on this tile is doubled. But if you want to hit someone on this tile, you'll need to roll a 6 to do any damage at all. Pass through a flooded tile and you slow down. Walk into this one and you might trigger a trap. There are 15 different tile types, which add a solid amount of variety to each of your adventures, either as the good guys or the bad guys. Now, as much as I like Claustrophobia, it can feel a little slow. The average playtime for us here at Board Game Coffee is about 45 minutes to 2 hours. Now, I have nothing against long games. I play long games all the time. But I didn't say it felt too long. I said it felt too slow. Now, part of that is because I want to keep playing, and I don't want to have to wait for the other guy to move his dudes. But I know I gotta, and I get it. There's only so much pre-planning you can do in Claustrophobia, because a lot of the actions you gotta take are determined largely in part by the actions of the person you're playing against. But what really dragged it on for me was just how slow Chris was at playing the demons. I mean, what's the holdup, Chris? My dudes have got places to be. So make a move, will you overthinking crit rolling son of a bitch? Did I mention Chris is a dick?
You're just bitter you lost.
I'm not. Shut your hole, you stupid crit rolling loogie son. But you know what? Slow or not, I just keep wanting to go back. I think it's because part of me enjoys the slow crawl. That sense of tiptoeing through a dark dungeon with monsters lurking in every shadow. And I also want my shot at redemption.
Ha! Fat chance.
Get off my set! Now, one thing you're gonna have to come to grips with is the randomness of the dice, which is true in most games involving dice. But at least in Claustrophobia, you have a lot of options of what to do with said dice. And even if you do roll dice that don't help you, you can always use cards in your hand to change the result to something that can. But one thing you don't have control over is your battle dice. I mean, you might have games where it feels like all you're rolling is 2s and your opponent keeps landing 6s.
You would know.
Shut up! Now, before I go, I'd like to point out one thing. It's a small thing, but it's a thing. The translation of the rulebook can use a little work. I mean, it's not bad. For the most part, it's absolutely fine. Nothing a quick Google search can fix. But even with the odd translation misstep, it's still better than most manuals that started off in English. So, final verdict? I like the adventure. Sure, it can be a little slow, but I knew that going in, and so should you. I like playing against a person who's playing for the side of evil. And I like that winning, either as the good guys or the bad guys, is difficult, but in a good kind of way. Now, come to think of it, there was one translated line in particular that I did have some difficulties with. And it went like this. Depending upon the effects of the choice of the line of activation of their warriors, the human player may draw instinct cards. I think what they meant to say was, certain lines on your warrior board will reward you with instinct cards when activated. Alright, that's it for our review of Claustrophobia 1643. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe here. It's the best way to keep up to date with everything we do here at Board Game Coffee. But if you want to see more reviews or other videos right now, click here. And if that's not enough, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee. And remember, have fun, keep gaming, be social. See you next week.